Okay guys, so this is a very short tutorial to get you ready for the quiz. Let's try to get this over with. That way you can study a little bit. Okay, I'm going to create a new class. That way I can show you some of the options that you are going to get. Okay, it is important for you to understand that the different types of variables. So remember that we have integer variables, so I'm going to create two integer variables right away. Okay, I'm going to create two double variables. Okay, we did this already. I'm going to create two character variables. Okay, and I'm going to create probably two more string variables. Okay, G and H. Those string variables, remember that are phrases or words, or it's just a string of characters. Okay, a character is only one symbol, like a letter or so on. Okay, so the computations are very important in programming. As I said, computations actually declare the order of precedence in any of the results that we're going to get, and it's very important to have in mind the order of precedence. One that we talked about is multiplication, division, adding and subtracting, which is pretty much the way we do it in math with PEMDAS. Okay, so let's say I am going to store any computation here. Okay, in this case I have two integer variables. Oh, but first let me assign an integer variable, and B, I'm going to add another integer value. Okay, so I have two integer values. Now on a double, okay, I would like to create the computation of 3 divided 6. Okay, in this case I just need to print out whatever it's on C, and that way I can see what I'm gonna get. Okay, now what I'm doing is that I'm dividing an integer divided by another integer, which it's going to be stored in a double. Okay, but the important thing is that we actually know what the output is. Okay, so as you can see, we're going to get 0, 0.0. Okay, this 0.0 means this is a double variable, but 3 divided 6 is 0 point something, so it truncates the decimal part because it's an integer. An integer divided by an integer is also an integer, and it puts it in the double. It is very important to understand that, because every time that you're going to make a calculation, even though you cast into a double, if you cast into a double A divided or B divided C, this will get exactly the same result as doing it the other way. So casting, when you cast this operation, okay, if you cast this operation, it's going to be exactly the same. I'm just going to cast into a double whatever I get from two integers. Okay, so 6 divided 3, it's going to be 2. Okay, and I'm going to get 2.0. You'll see this in a minute. That way you pretty much understand what I'm talking about. Oh, sorry. So B is 6. Oh, sorry. It's because it's not B divided C, is B divided A. Okay? Yeah, B divided C. C, I haven't declared C yet. Or C is 0. Sorry, C is 0. So B divided C, it's in infinity. Okay? That's a new thing we learned. So as you can see, it's 2. But we actually want the decimal part. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast one of the variables. So I'm going to cast the double, and then I'm going to divide it by A. This is totally different. I'm casting a double divided by an integer. A double divided by an integer is going to be another integer. So in this case, sorry, it's because it's 2. Let's try to change this. A divided B, that way I can get the decimal parts. Okay, and now I have 0.5. Now 3 divided 6 is 0.5, and now I'm getting the fraction. So it's very important to understand what are you casting. If you cast the whole operation between integers, you're just getting the integer into a double, the whole operation, okay? A double, which is, in this case, I casted a into a double, divided an integer, it's going to give me a double, okay? That is very important. Another thing is when we are operating with the remainder function, or the remainder operator, and and using parentheses. So we have remainder and we have casting. So in this case, let's try to cast. Okay, let's try to cast one of the variables. Okay, I'm going to cast a, and I'm going to say remainder b. Okay, in this case, it would be 3 divided 6, and what would be the remainder? Okay, 3 divided 6. Okay, I'm casting this into a double. Okay, in this case, I get a 3. That would be the remainder, okay? Because 3 divided 6 would actually give me a 3 of a remainder, 3.0. If we do it the other way around, if we do b divided a, which is 6 divided 3, I would get remainder 0, right? I would get remainder 0 because 6 divided 3 is 2 without a remainder. Okay, and here I can see that I get a 0, right? So that is with the operation remainder. It is also important to take care of the parentheses, okay? Let's say we have C and we have 4 plus 3 divided 2 remainder 6 remainder 3 4. Okay, if we have this operation, let's see what is the order of operation. Let's try to understand. Okay, so the order of precedence is pretty important. First, you have those operations like remainder, okay, and parentheses. Then you have multiplication and division, and then you have adding and subtracting. Let's see if it actually works out. Okay, so in this case, let's try to understand what it's doing, okay? So let's make sure that multiplication and division is first, okay? So 3 divided 6, an integer divided by an integer, would be 0 point something. Now that 0 point something in this operation is 0. Now 0 remainder 4, well, it's 0, okay? It's 0, it's 0, and 4 plus 0 is 4. Okay, let's try to do it in another way. 6 divided 4, 6 divided 3, remainder 4. And here I'm going to put remainder 2. Let's see what happens. Okay, here we have the same thing. We have 6 divided 3 is 2. 2 remainder 2 is 0 because 2 divided 2 is 1 with no remainder. So 4 plus 0 is also 4. So as you can see, the order of precedence works this way. I advise that you actually make computations like this, okay, where you have multiplication, division, and you don't use parentheses to see which order of operation goes first. For example, if you cast, what will happen if you use order of operations like between multiplication and division and remainder, what does it happen? So for example, 6 times 3, okay, 6 times 3, and then I'll have plus 1, okay, remainder okay, plus 10 remainder 3. Okay, let's see what happens in this case. Try to do it on your own first, that way you make sure that you have the operations correctly. Okay, of Of course, you can always use parentheses if you want to understand how, if you want to do an operation first, but in this case we just want to make sure that what is the order of precedence when you have multiplication, you have addition, and then you have remainder. Okay. Okay, here we can also clearly see that first the multiplication and division is done, then the remainder is done, and finally the addition is done. So 6 times 3, 18. 10 remainder 3 would be 1, because 10 divided 3 is 3 point something. So we have 3, and 3 times 3 is 9, and the remainder is 1. Okay. If you want to really practice what is a remainder, just make the manual operation 10 divided 3, okay, and see what happens. Okay, and this is 1, so 18 plus 1 is equal to 19. Okay, so that's how we do it. So very important that you see that before you actually start this exam. Another thing that we talked about earlier was the use of methods. Okay, as I said before, this is our main method, the public static void main, but you can create all sorts of methods in your program. Okay, let's create another one. They have to be static if we're going to have them here. So public static void, and let's call it compute. Okay, and in this case I really need, in order to use this method, whenever I call the method, I need to use a parameter. Okay, and these parameters are very important because it's called parameter passing. So in order to compute, I need an integer. Okay, this integer a, it's only declared in this variable, in this scope. Okay, so it doesn't matter if I use another a later on or outside of this. Okay, if I use an a outside of this block of code, it doesn't matter. As you can see, I can create another int a here, and I can say this is 5, and it's not going to have any problem by duplicating variables because they're in a different method. Okay, that is very important. So I can say int a, and then I can say int a, and then I can call the method compute, and when I call the method compute, I need something. I need a parameter. And what is the parameter like? It has to be a. Okay, so I'm calling compute a. This a, as I say it again, this a is this one. This a is not this one. Okay, very, very important. That's why I can call int whatever, int number. That's the one that I need. Okay, so this a, when I call compute, this is an integer variable that is going to pass to this method as an integer number. Now inside the method, I must use this number variable. Okay, so as I said again, compute, and I give a parameter. This parameter is the one that passes to this method, and here inside the method I compute whatever I need. So I can create a double variable, double solution. I can call it solution, or I can call it whatever I want, and this solution is going to be the number. So this number, and this number passed from this other method. Okay, it passes along. So the double solution might be to make it a double. I mean to make it the squared. Okay, the number squared. So I have the solution, and I can print out my solution. Okay, and this is how the program will work. It will go here, it will create a variable with 5, then he will call the compute method sending the number 5. The compute method receives the number 5 because it's an integer, so it meets the parameters. After it receives the number 5, he makes a computation and puts it into a solution, and then that solution can be printed. I can use the print.out, the system.out.println wherever I want. Okay, so if I actually do this, see, I'm going to get a 25, which is the 5. Put it into method. So don't worry when on the exam or on any quiz you see questions where you see a method, you see this structure, you just use the variable that it's in here, okay? You just use the variable that it's in here. So let's say you have the method and they tell you, okay, what is the code for this method to work? The code must divide a number, okay, must tell if the number is prime or not, okay? I'm sorry, if it's, sorry, not prime. Let's say it's divisible by 2, okay? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create here a variable, and I'm going to say number remainder 2, and if this solution is 0, then I can send it, okay? So system.out.println, and then I'm going to type in solution, and then I can tell if the number is divisible by 2, okay? Well, it's a 1, so it's not divisible by 2. And of course, 5 is not divisible by 2, okay? So that's basically it. Another thing, I can send 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. It's just that when I call the method, on the main method, when I call it, I must insert the parameters, okay? If I don't put a parameter, look, automatically I get an error. I will get an error right away. So that is how methods work. Don't worry, we're going to continue using methods. There's a lot of explanation on parameter passing and methods. We'll see it later on, okay? And you will learn about it. Another thing, very simple. I'm going to create a variable here called double, and let's say this is 4.3. Now look, if this method is expecting an integer number and I want to send something else, it's not going to work. Okay? If I send a double and the method signature says that it must be an integer number, it's not going to work. So, very important to understand that. Look what the error says. Change method compute int to compute double. Okay? So one correction would be change the method signature. Okay? The other method would be cast b to an int. Okay? So a solution to this would be I can cast this. Okay? I can cast b into an int and then I can send it to the method. So that is another thing that you can do. So that's all for now. Make lots of computations on your computer. See the order of precedence. Read the pages that you are supposed to from week 4. And good luck for this for week 4 quiz, okay? Goodbye.